Students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian, and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Central Europe. I hope everybody has had a great week and is looking forward to a fantastic weekend, staying healthy, strong, and fit, getting your vitamins in. Hi, Violet Newen. Hi, Shaik. Hi, Justwinder. Nice to see some of our regular students, and I see lots of members in the class as well, Jainil and others. Welcome. Today we are looking at the listening section of the IELTS exam, specifically focusing on parts 3 and part 4, continuing from yesterday's part 1 and 2. If you missed yesterday's class, that's absolutely okay. These parts of the listening are unique and separate. While we wait for a few more students, this lesson is presented to you by aehelp.com. For academic IELTS, check us out there. For general IELTS, visit us at gieltshelp.com. On both of our websites, we have loads and loads of great materials for you. Our websites, they look like this. This is the academic at aehelp.com. Click that big red button to join the premium package. And for the general version of the exam, it's this green colored background here, and you can click that big red button to join us there. Marios, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. You can also get our apps from your app store, Academic IELTS Help. That links to your aehelp.com account. And for General IELTS, you can get the General IELTS Help app, which will link to your gieltshelp.com account. So you can access our materials through the app or through the website. And if you have questions, just send me an email to adrian@aehelp.com. So tomorrow we'll have speaking part 2 for members, and we'll also have speaking part 3 for everyone. Make sure to join us for those classes. Yesterday we looked at part 1. We discussed some multiple choice question strategies for the listening section. If you missed that, you can check that video on the YouTube channel later today after this class. Hi, Hina. Nice to have another member joining in on the class. So I'm going to start the listening part 3 audio and questions. Just the usual request, students, please do not put answers into the chat. Give everybody a chance to answer on their own. So put your answers on a separate piece of paper or into a separate document, and then we'll go through the answers together after the listening, and we'll talk some strategy as well. Now, all of the audio on my side is maximum volume. I'm using my mic and speaker for this audio. So if it's quiet for you, please try to use a headset and turn up the volume on your end. All right, everyone, let's hop over to the website here, and we'll log in to our student account. In the student account, you find all of these great tools, computer-based practice exams, over 100 hours of video lessons, and then, of course, here we have our audio CDs. Now, this is our third exam, so it's coming from CD3 track 3. So let's find that for those of you who have our products, and then we'll start right away. So get ready to listen and answer. Here we go.
Now turn to section 3. Take some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Listening section 3. You will hear a public forum discussion between the moderator and 2 contributors, Dr. Philip McPhee and Dr. Ron Tatum, both political scientists at the local university, talking about the nature of taxes in society. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
First of all, I would like to thank Dr. McPhee and Dr. Tatham for taking time out of their busy lives to spend this evening with us.
Thank you for having us.
Dr. McPhee, could you give us a little bit of the history of taxation?
Certainly. Taxes have been around almost as long as civilization itself. There are records of taxes being collected by Egyptian pharaohs approximately 5,000 years ago. It was customary to give 20% of your production to the pharaoh, and those who evaded taxes were severely punished.
Dr. Tatham, what are the reasons for taxes?
Well, there are essentially three major reasons for taxes. The first and most obvious reason is revenue. Governments need money, and taxes fulfill this need. The government then spends this tax revenue on investments that are good for society, such as healthcare, schools and roads. Funding the army would fall under this category as well. The second reason for taxation is for the redistribution of wealth. In simpler terms, this means taking money from the rich and giving it to the poor. Many societies do this out of a belief that it is the responsibility of the government to look after the poor people in society. I'll let Dr. McPhee talk about the final reason for taxation, called repricing.
In general, products are allowed to be priced in a free market. That is to say, whoever can provide goods for the lowest price is the most successful. However, there are certain types of goods that we don't allow to go to the free market. In many countries, these are goods like tobacco and alcohol. These goods are subject to a repricing tax, which is used to discourage people from using the product. Also, these repricing taxes help offset the future medical costs associated with the people who use tobacco and alcohol excessively.
You now have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the discussion and answer questions 27 to 30.
Very well. Do you favor higher or lower taxes?
I am a strong proponent of higher taxes. The reason for this is money when you already have money. This gives a massive advantage to those people who may have inherited money or come from rich families, because money is so much easier to gain for these people if used wisely. Taxing them seems only fair and for the greater good. This compensates the poorer sections of society who really have little or no hope to gain financial success.
I understand Dr. Tatham's position, but one has to be wary of the fact that if taxes are too high for businesses, then those businesses will be in favour of countries with lower taxes. Of course, it would be nice if we could legislate a worldwide tax structure, but this is simply not attainable. And I'm sure by the time it becomes attainable, companies will likely have opportunities for another planet with a more favourable tax structure.
We must always be mindful of staying competitive. It is like a tightrope we must walk between protecting those less fortunate and being able to stay competitive in the market. Because if we fail to be competitive, then tax revenue will dry up, resulting in no money at all for the lower economic classes. So this is an extremely difficult balancing act.
Which leads to my next question. What is the future of taxation?
You will see higher taxes in 50 years than there are today, just as we have higher taxes today than 50 years ago. We will need even more money for projects like high-speed transit, new roads, new technologies. Also, with an ageing population, medical costs could soar in the near future, resulting in higher taxes to support this healthcare system.
I think the future will be a lot like the present, walking the tightrope as Dr. Tatham mentioned. Where that takes us, I'm not sure. If I had to guess, I'd say higher taxes for the reasons Dr. Tatham outlined. However, another important variable to consider is whether free markets can really be allowed.
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
And use that half minute wisely, students, to check your answers. We're going to go through the answers together, talk a little bit of strategy, and see how you did. All right. Cracking. Okay. Let me see. Okay, can everybody hear me okay right now? So I can see that a lot of you are saying that the audio is cracking and it's not working too well. I can play the audio again. I just want to make sure that it's clear because there's so many pieces here. Microphone, transmitter, receiver. All right, is the audio clear right now? Can you hear me okay right now? I can play it one more time. So Shaikh says it's cracking. Ferizobek says now it's fine. Okay. Strange that it was cracking suddenly for you. All right. Okay. Who wants me to play it one more time? You'll get a second chance here, which is actually not bad. When you're practicing at home, sometimes it's a good idea to do it twice. So we can do it twice. Everybody wants to do it twice? Yeah, thumbs up. Okay. All right. We'll see how well you got it the first time and how well you got it this time. Okay. All right. It looks like the popular vote is play it one more time, so I'll do that. Okay, I'm going to play it one more time. And again, students, it's not always a bad idea at home to double up on the audio, meaning to play it twice, okay? So I'm going to jump back here and play it one more time and see how well you got it the first time and how well you get it now. And I'm going to check to make sure that it's not crackling for you.
Section 3. You will hear a public forum discussion between the moderator and two contributors, Dr. Philip McPhee and Dr. Ron Tatum, both political scientists.
If it's cracking again, let me know.
Talking about the nature of taxes in society. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
First of all, I would like to thank Dr. McPhee and Dr. Tatum for taking time out of their busy lives to spend this evening with us.
Thank you for having us.
Dr. McPhee, could you give us a little bit of the history of taxation?
Certainly. Taxes have been around almost as long as civilization itself. There are records of taxes being collected by Egyptian pharaohs approximately 5,000 years ago. It was customary to give 20% of your production to the pharaoh, and those who evaded taxes were severely punished.
Dr. Tatum, what are the reasons for taxes?
Well, there are essentially three major reasons for taxes. The first and most obvious reason is revenue. Governments need money, and taxes fulfill this need. The government then spends this tax revenue on investments that are good for society, such as healthcare, schools and roads. Funding the army would fall under this category as well. The second reason for taxation is for the redistribution of wealth. In simpler terms, this means taking money from the rich and giving it to the poor. Many societies do this out of a belief that it is the responsibility of the government to look after the poor people in society. I'll let Dr. McPhee talk about the final reason for taxation, called repricing.
Thank you, Dr. Tatum. Yes, the third main reason for taxation is called repricing, and by this we mean changing the price of a product to a different, generally higher price. This may sound quite strange, but if you bear with me, you'll see that it makes perfect sense. In general, products are allowed to be priced in a free market. That is to say, whoever can provide goods for the lowest price is the most successful. However, there are certain types of goods that we don't allow to go to the free market. In many countries, these are goods like tobacco and alcohol. These goods are subject to a repricing tax, which is used to discourage people from using the product. Also, these repricing taxes help offset the future medical costs associated with the people who use tobacco and alcohol excessively.
You now have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the discussion and answer questions 27 to 30.
Very well. Do you favour higher or lower taxes?
I am a strong proponent of higher taxes. The reason for this is simply that it is easier to make money when you already have money. This gives a massive advantage to those people who may have inherited money or come from rich families, because money is so much easier to gain for these people if used wisely. Taxing them seems only fair and for the greater good. This compensates the poorer sections of society who really have little or no hope to gain financial success.
I understand Dr. Tatham's position, but one has to be wary of the fact that if taxes are too high for businesses, then those businesses will leave the country in favour of countries with lower taxes. Of course, it would be nice if we could legislate a worldwide tax structure, but this is simply not attainable. And I'm sure by the time it becomes attainable, companies will likely have opportunities to leave for another planet with more favourable tax structure.
Yes, you're right, Dr. McPhee. We must always be mindful of staying competitive. It is like a tightrope we must walk between compensating those less fortunate and being able to stay competitive in the market. Because if we fail to be competitive, then tax revenue will dry up, resulting in no money at all for the lower economic classes. So this is an extremely difficult balancing act.
Which leads to my next question. What is the future of taxation?
I believe you will see higher taxes in 50 years than there are today, just as we have higher taxes today than 50 years ago. We will need even more money for projects like high-speed transit, new roads, new technologies. Also, with an ageing population, medical costs could soar in the near future, resulting in higher taxes to support this healthcare system.
I think the future will be a lot like the present, walking the tightrope as Dr. Tatham mentioned. Where that takes us, I'm not sure. If I had to guess, I'd say higher taxes for the reasons Dr. Tatham outlined. However, another important variable to consider is whether free markets can really be allowed.
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
And again, students, check your answers in that half minute. Try to go to the next section. All right. So again, it's good practice at times. I mean, it's unfortunate it was this way, but it's good practice at times to go over the same listening twice and see if you remain with the same answers that you chose the first time around. All right. Let's take a look at this now in a little bit more detail. So the first few questions were short answers. Of course, pay really careful attention to the question instructions. So it's no more than 2 words and or a number for each answer. So question 21, if an Egyptian's income was 10,000, how much would be given to the pharaoh? So what was the correct answer for question 21? So how much? How much obviously is going to be a number here. It's going to be a figure. Shiro Jidin says 2,000. Charlie, Zaid, Billy agree. Fabrian says 20%, but it's actually 2,000. Okay, so 2,000 is the correct answer. And some of you here are probably going, well, why is 20% not okay? Okay, so why is that not okay? The reason why is because it's not specific to the question, okay? You have to be really careful with the questions, and sometimes in the IELTS you have to do a little bit of math. So here they give you the number 10,000, and 20% of 10,000 is of course 2,000. If they wouldn't give you this number, then this would be okay. But because they give you this number, this is the more accurate answer. Okay? It's like as if you're having a conversation with someone. So in ancient Egypt, people had to pay tax. How much? 20%. Okay, so can you give me an example? Yeah. If somebody made 10,000, they would give 2,000 to the person. Okay? So if an Egyptian's income is 10,000, how much, not what percent, but how much of that would be given? This is the more accurate answer. This one, it's a very low chance that it would be accepted. Yeah, it would be wrong for Izobek. Absolutely. They're looking for this number. So be really careful with these kinds of inference simple math type questions. Okay, that's my first tip to you. You can almost bet that you'll have one question like this in the listening section. So just a quick note on this before we go to the next few questions and answers. Okay, because I really want you to remember this. These are also called inference type questions as well in the IELTS. So where you have to use what you hear and then make some kind of a logical calculation, okay? So be careful with simple math questions in the IELTS listening. There is usually one in every exam. You have to listen, calculate, and answer, okay? You can check those when you're reviewing or when you're transferring answers to the answer sheet. You're very welcome, Janil. Okay, so careful with that one. All right, let's keep going. So number 2, the first reason mentioned for taxes is, so right away in the beginning, they say there are 3 reasons for taxes. The first reason for tax is, what is it? Revenue, that's right, yeah. And it's a simple noun, so you can just do revenue. Okay, now in the listening section, students, you can do all capital. Okay, just be careful that these are slower and it's easier to make spelling mistakes. Okay, so what I recommend if you're doing the paper-based exam especially is in the question booklet, write with lowercase letters, and then when you transfer your answers, you can change it to uppercase if you'd like, just to make sure you don't make a proper noun, common noun mistake, okay? But in your question booklet, I definitely recommend using lowercase just because it's faster and your spelling is usually more accurate, okay? So choose that, okay? Bisser, I wouldn't write it with a capital R here. It's a part of the sentence. It's not a proper noun. So if you write it like this, you definitely could get that wrong, okay? All right. Sammy, if you wrote generate revenue, that would be okay because they accept up to 2 words and it makes sense in the space. So the first reason mentioned for taxes is generate revenue. It's okay, but the word generate is unnecessary and that will take you extra time and you could make extra spelling mistakes. So try not to write extra words, okay? All right. Zaid, revenue with small r or all big letters. This is definitely okay. This is definitely okay. This is likely not okay. It's not at the beginning of the sentence. And if you wrote a sentence with a capital R, it would be a mistake. The teacher would correct it and do that. Okay? So this is technically not correct there. And the IELTS is quite technical. So be careful. Okay? All right. You want to be as technically accurate, students, as possible. The best chance for a high score in the IELTS exam is to be technically correct, okay? And I'm going to give you a tip that I haven't said in the past, but I'm going to give you this right now because I think it's really smart for people to do this when they're learning for the IELTS exam. So this is going to be a huge tip for you here, okay? It is a very good idea to not just look at IELTS preparation books, and I'm kind of speaking against our product. I mean, we focus on IELTS on our websites for sure, but we also do include technical English. So it is a very good idea not to just look at IELTS preparation books before your exam, but also use and practice with books that teach correct technical English writing for school. Okay, so if you go online and you search, you'll find books that deal with grammar rules, syntax, punctuation, and so on. Because even when you pass the IELTS and you get into college or university using English, and of course in the future when you're doing business or your job with English, you have to know these grammar rules, syntax, punctuation. So you might as well learn it for the IELTS as well, because you can't go wrong on that, okay? So look for just books that deal specifically with English rules for grammar, syntax, punctuation, okay? Learn especially the basics, all right? Don't just think IELTS, but think English language rules, okay? All right. Shaikh, you're very welcome. Glad you're picking that up. Okay, so here we go. Number 23. The second reason for taxes is known as something takes money from the rich and gives it to the poor. Okay, so what is that? What's the second reason? Nazir says redistribution. Yep, and that's absolutely right. So known as redistribution. And again, one word here is okay. So the second reason for taxes, known as redistribution, takes money from the rich and gives it to the poor. Okay, absolutely. All right. And again, this is a common noun, so you don't really need a big R there. It's not a name, it's just a reason. Okay, redistribution takes money from the rich. Again, distribute, to spread out, to give, okay? And then shen being the noun, so redistribution. All right, good. So 2,000 revenue and redistribution. Even though it said two words and or a number, you only needed one for each. The reason it says two words is because you could actually do 2,000 like this, but I don't recommend doing that. This would be two words, and that's okay. But I don't recommend doing that. It's slower, more chance of spelling mistakes. So always use the number, not the word. Okay? All right. Let's go on to this flow chart here. So here you had to write the correct letter from here into the numbers. First you have a product. And then for number 24, it's a blank, and then allowed to go to free market. So from these, which one is allowed to go to free market? Yeah, Billy, wealth redistribution is okay, but wealth is an unnecessary word. You don't need the word wealth. Just redistribution is enough. Okay. All right. So, yeah, E. For all of you who put E, general goods, okay? So electronics, makeup, toys, general goods. 24, all right. So then on the other side, so these are obviously kind of opposites here. You have something which is subject to some kind of a tax. So number 25, if it's not general goods, then what would be an object, merchandise, or goods that are considered not general goods for 25? Yeah, B, alcohol. Alcohol would be an example, or tobacco, for instance, as well. Okay, so those items which are harmful for health. So those are subject to what kind of a tax? Number 26. So alcohol is subject to what kind of tax? It's a D. It's a repricing tax. Yeah. And for those of you who are planning to study in Canada, I can tell you, as I'm a Canadian, that Canada has some of the highest repricing taxes in the world. Okay, so tobacco and alcohol are very expensive in Canada because we have a very high repricing tax in Canada. So a pack of cigarettes in Canada will cost you about $15 or $17 Canadian. So it's almost like $1 a cigarette. Okay. And alcohol is about twice or three times as expensive as in other places as well. Bonus question, students, why? So these two professors, they explain the reason for repricing tax. What's the reason for repricing tax? What's the logic there? So why would a country do that? Why would they have additional taxes for these kinds of goods? What's the logic? And this is called active listening. This is where you're picking up more information than just the questions are asking. Okay? Yeah, Shirojidin, if somebody likes their alcohol, Canada is an expensive place to hang out. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, Hina, exactly, to reduce consumption. So repricing, the reasons that they state are discourage use. So it's kind of like, okay, well, maybe if you have to pay $5 for one beer, you're going to think twice about drinking 10 beers in one night. Maybe, right? So that's one reason. Anybody get the other reason? The other reason, and this is a big one, this is one of the big reasons Canada has such a high repricing tax, is to pay for damage and health. So maybe some of you are right now asking, well, why would Canada have such a high repricing tax? Well, as many of you maybe know, Canada has a very good healthcare system. That means Canadians who get sick, they get free healthcare. So you can go into the hospital. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. In Canada, they will give you the best help possible. Okay? So in Canada, the society says, well, okay, we'll give you free healthcare. We'll take care of you no matter if you're rich or poor. But hey, if you decide to smoke and you get some kind of lung disease, which costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in healthcare for one person, then you have to pay us if you're smoking for that kind of damage. And same with alcohol. If you're drinking and you get some kind of a liver problem and we're giving you free health care, then you have to pay for that kind of damage. Does that make sense, students, how free health care and repricing tax are linked together in this kind of a situation? So you'll find that with countries where they have a really good healthcare system, where the society pays for healthcare, they're going to have very, very high repricing taxes. Okay? So, if you like to party, and drink and smoke, Canada is an expensive place to be, but it's a great place to be because of free healthcare, subsidized education, and so on. All right? So, yeah, there's smart people working on these kinds of rules and systems. All right, so here we go with the next question. Which three of the following are arguments given in favor of lower taxes? And here you had to choose three letters. It doesn't matter the order. Okay, now it's very important to pay attention to the question. It's lower taxes. Okay. So A, it's easier to make money when you're already rich. B, businesses will leave the country if taxed too harshly. And I gave you some really good tips for this one. Okay. So Charlie says B, D, and F. Many of you are also saying the same. The order does not matter in this case, Sammy, for this one. For 24 to 26, it does. Yes, definitely. Okay, and the correct answers were B, D, and F. Those were the correct answers. So first, one professor says businesses will leave the country if taxed too harshly. That makes sense. That's logical. A was for higher taxes. So that was not correct. Okay. And then the other professor says, yes, it's true that a country must be able to stay competitive in a global market. So that was correct. And then F, lower taxes in the end up benefiting everyone, including the poor, because when businesses can make more money, they can hire more people to do more work. That's the argument. So if you got B, D, and F, good for you. Okay. Practice these kinds of multiple choice questions with the strategies that I showed in yesterday's class. All right, now the last one, I think this was a fairly easy question and answer. They were pretty strong in their opinion and they explained it very clearly. What do the speakers believe about taxes in the future? You can also use your logic here. If you didn't catch it, think about what you would think, okay? I think most of us would agree that C is the correct answer because likely taxes will be higher, okay? All right, good job so far, everyone. Let's get right into listening part 4, okay? Listening part 4. So logic, again, is a big friend in the IELTS exam. Again, students, I'm going to play the audio through my mic. Hopefully we don't have crackling or interference. If that happens, let me know. Bisser, 7 out of 10 is very good for part 3. Okay. All right. If there is some problem with the sound, let me know. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat so that I know what's going on. We'll get right into it here. And again, don't write the answers into the chat, okay? So we'll go through them after. Write it into a separate piece of paper. All right, here we go, everyone, with the final part, part 4.
Now turn to section 4. Take some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Listening section 4. You will hear a lecture about English scientist Isaac Newton. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Today we are going to discuss the life and achievements of the famous English scientist Sir Isaac Newton. Many consider Newton to be the most brilliant man to have ever lived, and many consider his achievements the greatest ever achieved by one man. Newton himself was not so sure, as he famously told his followers, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." While it may be true that he built upon the foundation of scientists before him, he still managed to see further than anyone else had, and to this day his accomplishments stand the test of time. Isaac Newton was born in England in 1643. He studied at the King's School in Grantham from age 12 to 17. After leaving school, his mother tried to make him into a farmer, but that was not going to be sufficient for young Isaac. A year later, in 1661, on the recommendation of one of his teachers at the King's School in Grantham, Newton was admitted to Trinity College, where he eventually became a teacher 6 years later. Newton is perhaps most famous for his work on gravity. A well-known story says that Newton realized the nature of gravity while he was sitting under a tree and an apple fell on his head. This story may or may not be true, but the underlying principle is valuable. Newton made the astonishing discovery that the same force that makes an apple fall to the earth
Okay, so I see that it's cracking. Okay, don't worry. I'll try to fix it for you. Just a second. All right. Yeah, it's very strange. I'm not sure if that's feedback or not. Can you hear me okay right now? I'm going to try to play around with the mic and the transmitter again. Is my voice crackling also, or is it okay? It's really strange. It's very hard for me to figure out what's causing that. It only seems to happen with this listening. The audio is fine on my side, by the way. I can hear everything clearly. There's so many things. Bister said it was not that bad. I could hear it well. Sometimes I wonder if it's the actual YouTube transmission that's having a hard time with this kind of audio setup. Okay, if everybody can hear me okay right now, let's try this one more time. Okay. Yeah, the audio is clear for me in the studio, so let's try this one more time. Okay, I'll go back to the beginning. We'll go one more time. Hopefully it will be like last time where it does not crackle. Just give me 1 second. Okay.
Now turn to section 4. Take some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Listening section 4. You will hear a lecture about English scientist Isaac Newton.
Let me know, students, if it happens again, okay?
Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Today we are going to discuss the life and achievements of the famous English scientist Sir Isaac Newton. Many consider Newton to be the most brilliant man to have ever lived, and many consider his achievements the greatest ever achieved by one man. Newton himself was not so sure, as he famously told his followers, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." While it may be true that he built upon the foundation of scientists before him, he still managed to see further than anyone else had, and to this day his accomplishments stand the test of time. Isaac Newton was born in England in 1643. He studied at the King's School in Grantham from age 12 to 17. After leaving school, his mother tried to make him into a farmer, but that was not going to be sufficient for young Isaac. A year later, in 1661, on the recommendation of one of his teachers at the King's School in Grantham, Newton was admitted to Trinity College in Cambridge, where he eventually became a teacher 6 years later. Newton is perhaps most famous for his work on gravity. A well-known story says that Newton realized the nature of gravity while he was sitting under a tree and an apple fell on his head. This story may or may not be true, but the underlying principle is valuable. Newton made the astonishing discovery that the same force that makes an apple fall to the earth also makes the earth revolve around the sun and the moon revolve around the earth. Until this time, scientists such as René Descartes and Gottfried Leibniz had believed that the planets moved in some sort of matter, something they called an ether. Newton demonstrated that no such ether was required. Descartes and Leibniz also had little explanation for why apples fall to the earth. Newton's theory accounted for this almost perfectly. During the 20th century, Newton's theory came under attack by the German physicist Albert Einstein, whose theory of relativity was said to replace Newton's theory of gravitation. This is simply not true. Einstein's theory is a landmark achievement in science, but it did not replace Newton's theory, it merely improved it. To picture this, think of a smooth ball, perhaps a billiard ball. In this experiment of the mind, Newton tells us that the ball is smooth. However, Einstein says that the ball has small imperfections, dents, cuts, and scrapes. Who is right? The answer is both of them. Newton is correct on a macroscopic scale. When we look at the ball from a distance, the ball is smooth. However, Einstein is correct as well. The ball does have imperfections. He is correct. Other There are a number of reasons the mirror is an improvement over the lens in telescopes. First, mirrors do not warp as easily as lenses do, and by that I mean that lenses can lose their shape in hot or cold weather quite easily. Second, telescopes with mirrors take up less space because of their shorter focal distance. Third, telescopes with mirrors can be built far larger because the mirrors themselves can be. An achievement of Newton's that must not be overlooked is Newton's discovery of calculus. Not without controversy. Gottfried Leibniz also claims to have invented calculus at approximately the same time. Nobody really knows the truth, but it is accepted that they discovered it separately. In any case, it was a brilliant achievement by both scientists. Newton died in March 1727, and his body was laid to rest at Westminster Abbey in London, in a famous above-ground tomb. He was 84.
That is the end of section 4. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
All right, students, I see there's a little bit of chatter going on about what was missed and not, but that's okay. We'll go through the answers together here in a moment. And well, again, students, if you want the best quality audio and video, you'll find those on the website. Live teaching, it works well, but it's still far from perfect. Here we go. Anyway, let's go through these together. Hopefully you got some of them right, and I'll explain a little bit as we go along anyhow. I have a feeling that there's Wi-Fi interruption going on with the audio, and I'll figure that out later today. All right, here we go. Let's do this. So the lecture is obviously about the life of Isaac Newton. We can see that from this first part of the flow chart. He's born in 1643. That's really important to pay attention to because that gives you the position in the audio. So when you hear this number, you know that it's coming from here on, okay? Now, Daniel said, I knew 37 from school, and that's great. So definitely learning about famous historical figures and so on can help you in the listening section. So he studied at King's School in Grantham from the age of 12 to 17. So 12, 2, we have the word 2, 17. So in your answer sheet, all you need to do for question 31 here is 12, 17, like that, okay? And that's fine. All right, and then he leaves school, and his mother wants him to attempts to make him a, what is it for 32? Thanks, Raj. Yeah, it's a farmer. That's right. So thank goodness that didn't happen. So Isaac does not become a farmer. Instead, he continues to study. Obviously, he's fond of learning. So 12, 17, and then in the next one, farmer. Let's keep going here. So again, 1661, this number helps position you in the audio, so pay attention to numbers. On the recommendation of his teachers, he's admitted to Trinity College in Cambridge. 6 years after beginning, Newton becomes a something there. Teacher, very good. Yeah, he becomes a teacher. A teacher scientist. Very good. All right. So far so good. That was fairly good. That was a smooth introduction. And then here, it got a little bit trickier. You had to match the person with their achievements. So you had Galileo, a very famous astronomer. Then you had Newton, you had Descartes and Leibniz, and then you had Einstein. Now, definitely, students, it helps to know some of these very famous scientists in history, Okay, you're looking at Italian, German, Austrian, different scientists from different countries. And here we go. So 34 believed that planets move in some kind of an ether. So who believed that planets move in some kind of an ether for number 34? It was Descartes and Leibniz. Now, again, logic can help you here. So Galileo lived the longest ago, then Descartes and Leibniz, then Newton, and then Einstein. Okay, so Galileo, Descartes, they lived a long time ago. After Galileo and Descartes, Newton and Leibniz were born, and then Einstein was born. If you know the order of these famous scientists when they were born, that can really help you with this, all right? Okay, number 35, developed a theory which was thought to replace the earlier theory of gravity. So number 35, Newton obviously came up with the theory of gravity. There's only one person here that came after Newton, so we know that 35 has to be, Jainil says D, and Jainil, you're correct. It has to be D, okay? So Einstein's theory was thought to replace Newton's theory of gravity. Later that was refuted. 36, in the experiment of the mind, tells us the billiard ball is smooth. Okay, so number 36. So who claimed that the billiard ball is smooth? That was B. That was Newton. Very good. So Newton said it was smooth. Einstein said, no, it's not smooth. It has small dents, scrapes, and so on. Okay. All right. 37, used not mirrors. Students, be really careful with the negatives in these types of questions. So not mirrors, but lenses in the construction of the telescope. Who did that? Dicey. SPB says that was Galileo. So Galileo used lenses, a brilliant invention at the time. Of course, Galileo got into big trouble with the church. Bonus question, anybody know why Galileo got into a big argument with the church? And I think they wanted to kill him or execute him for his discovery. Anybody know why Galileo got in trouble with the church? What was Galileo's theory that all of us now agree with, but at that time the church said no, 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 and they said, if you don't take back what you said, we're going to kill you because God said that it's not that way. And then Galileo said, well, I don't know what he said, but I found this, and yeah, that's right, Charlie. Yeah, exactly. He said, the earth moves around the sun, and it's not the center of the universe. Yeah, very good, Zaid. Absolutely. And also, yeah, that's right, Bisser. He did say that the earth is round. So he had a couple of points. He said the earth is round, and it moves around the sun, and the earth is not the center of the universe. And the church said, no, earth is the center of the universe, and it's flat. And if you say that again, we shall kill you. So very good. Those were the answers there. And of course, most of us now agree with Galileo that the earth is round and it does move around the sun. Okay, so here we go. Question 38 to 39. Write no more than 2 words and or a number for each answer. So telescopes with lenses cannot be built as large as telescopes with mirrors because large lenses tend to something. What was the answer there? So what happens with large lenses? Lenses are kind of round shaped, or we can say convex shaped. Yeah, Sammy says lose. Fabian said we had some crackling there. Sorry about that. I think I know the reason for the crackling now, so I can avoid it in the future. I think it's a Wi-Fi interference from a mouse, believe it or not. So they tend to lose shape. Okay. The speaker also said warp. So if some of you caught the word warp, that would be correct, or lose shape. Lose shape is the same as warp. Okay? Lose shape or warp. Those were the correct answers. Sorry, I don't think you can see that correctly. Warp is like this. Okay? So either warp or lose shape would be okay for that. And telescopes with mirrors take up less space because of their reduced what? What is it? So this one was a little bit tricky. If you didn't catch it, maybe it was crackling. Reduced focal distance. Okay, so telescopes with mirrors take up less space because of their reduced focal distance. That was the other answer there. Okay, so for those of you who got it, good for you. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we had one last question. This was a little bit of an interesting multiple choice inference question. So which statement is true? Newton and Leibniz discovered calculus together. Newton and Leibniz discovered calculus separately during the same time period, or Newton and Leibniz discovered calculus separately while working at the same university. A, B, or C. Again, a little bit of history knowledge here can help you. It was B. B was the correct answer. We still don't know today what the truth is, but it does seem that they discovered it separately during the same time. Of course, calculus is a type of mathematics. I'm sure many of you physics and chemistry students know about calculus, and it's a very important part of math. Okay, that's it. Count up your answers for those students who were in yesterday's class as well. What did you get out of 40? So for those of you who did part 1, part 2 yesterday and part 3, part 4 today, Zaid Nawafa got 36. I'm going to calculate your scores on our website. We have some score calculators. I'll show you that in a minute here. So let's hop over to the website. At the bottom of the website, you will find the score calculator. And with the score calculator, you can figure out your band score. So for the listening, we have it here at the top. And a score of 36 would be a band 8. Okay? Hopefully that's big enough and you can see it. So band 8, maybe I'll do a little bit bigger here. Okay, and this score calculator, you can use it for free on the website. Jaineel says 29. Jaineel, 29 is 6.5. So if you got 29 in all of those parts, you got 6.5, okay? Shido Jidin says 37. 37 would be a band 8.5. That's very good. That's very nice and high. All right. Shaikh says 35. No, 35 is very good. 35 is a band 8. Okay, Shaikh, so that's good. Prashant, 34. 34 is a 7.5. So 34, 7.5, 35, band 8. So you can use that score calculator on the websites, students, when you're doing your practice. Okay, and let's just hop back here. Tomorrow, students, we will be looking at speaking part 2 and part 3 practice in the 2 classes. So at the same time tomorrow, I will be back with part 2 and part 3 of speaking. Okay, so keep that in mind. And this is the last class for today, Fatemeh. The classes are at this time and a little bit earlier. Of course, you can get access to all of our practice exams, our videos, interactive computer-based exams, course for academic students, aehelp.com, for general IELTS students, gieltshelp.com. So check us out there. Good job, everyone. Thanks for bearing with the crackling sound. Happens sometimes, as many of you mentioned. Have a great rest of your day, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. Much love to all of you from Central Europe. I'm Adrian. Bye for now.